You know what the fun fact that I've heard this week, ladies and gentlemen, is that despite Casemiro's, I guess, flamboyant nature as a destructive defensive midfielder, his red card for Manchester United in their 2-1 win over Crystal Palace over the weekend was actually the first time he's ever seen a straight red card in his entire career. For some reason, that just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know why. And he got it for strangling Will Hughes, of all people. Will fucking Hughes! Hello guys, how are you getting on? My name is Aaron Kelly and you are very welcome back to another episode of the Premier League Verdict. It's been a while. Well, literally like 2 weeks because we haven't had Premier League games because of FA Cup action and all that kind of crack, but we're finally back. If you're excited to see the return of the Verdict, make sure you slap a like on the video and subscribe if you're new around here. As you can see by looking at the sub box down below, we're actually very close to 1k subscribers, so you know, keep getting those subscriptions in, keep supporting the boys. Welcome back to the Premier League Verdict, where, like I say, it does feel like it's been a while, but we are officially back. We've got our famous old graphic up in front of us, our green, yellow and red box. We're going to kick things off this week with our green box as usual, and Sean Dyche, he's fucking back, and he's back with a vengeance. Obviously appointed as the new Everton manager to replace Frank Lampard, and there was a couple of question marks over the fact that they've gone for Sean Dyche, and not only that, the fact that they were initially looking at someone like Marcelo Bielsa, and Sean Dyche was also an option, looking at the kind of waywardness of the Everton backroom staff at the minute, the board in particular. But I do genuinely think that, you know, as disappointing as the football might end up being under Sean Dyche, I think ultimately what Everton need at the minute is survival, and if there's one man that's going to do that, Sean Dyche is going to do it. It might not be pretty at times, and certainly the goal that they did end up getting at the weekend was not a pretty one, and a typical one of Sean Dyche's for many reasons. But they take on league leaders Arsenal at Goodison Park, and in many ways it's obviously could have been easily the worst way to start off for Everton under Sean Dyche, or could have easily been the best. Could have been one of those fixtures that he just kind of craves. And my God, he and his team did not disappoint. Something like 30-odd% possession, very few touches in the opposition box, but Everton managed to beat league leaders Arsenal by 1-0, and it was James Tarkowski, a former Burnley man, getting it on the end of a corner from Dwight McNeil, another former Burnley man. I mean, this kind of shit just does not happen. I mean, you cannot write a script like this. In Sean Dyche's first game as Everton manager, two of his former Burnley boys dig him out to score a brilliant goal for Everton to get them the win over the league leaders Arsenal. And despite, you know, I'm slagging them for the Dyche ball and the lack of possession and lack of touches in the opposition's box and all that kind of stuff, and it is funny to laugh about that kind of stuff, but ultimately, if you're an Everton fan, you don't give a shite because you've managed to still get the result, which is ultimately all you're looking for in the end. And a result that was against all the odds. I mean, not many teams have been able to beat Arsenal this season. That's how good they've been. Arsenal have been fairly formidable. That's why they have such a lead at the top of the Premier League table. But Everton did it, and it's gone in the space of a couple of weeks from being really fearful for Everton and their chances of staying in the division to now being fairly confident that Sean Dyche can do the job and save them. Because ultimately, I think that's what it's come down to. I think that is what Everton needed the most, was a good kick up the hole from someone as experienced as Sean Dyche, number one in the Premier League, but being as experienced as he is in these types of situations. He did it year in, year out with Burnley. And on the other end of the spectrum, for Arsenal, a really poor result, and just kind of outfought and outthought in nearly every single way. Goodison Park has seemed to be a bit of a bogey ground and for Arsenal over the last couple of years, and it really showed. They didn't really look themselves the weekend, and it gave Manchester City the real chance to move within 2 points of Arsenal. Now, Arsenal still would have had a game in hand, but they had a good chance today against Tottenham Hotspur, and that is where we move into our yellow box. City, you had the great chance to really close that gap to make this title race incredibly interesting, but you couldn't do it. You couldn't fucking do it. Harry Kane goes in the box for becoming Tottenham's all-time leading scorer in Tottenham's 1-0 win over Manchester City at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Do you want to hear another fucking incredible stat? Manchester City not only have never won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium before, they've never scored a goal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We're talking about Goodison Park maybe being a bit of a bogey ground for Arsenal. The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is the definition of a bogey ground for Manchester City. For whatever reason, Pep Guardiola just cannot seem to get it right whenever City visit that ground. Couple of questionable decisions today, including the decision to leave Kevin De Bruyne on the bench. Sometimes Pep makes these kind of crazy decisions that leave you scratching your head as to what the fuck is this man doing? But you also have to question, you know, it is Pep Guardiola, so I shouldn't question him that much, but then it doesn't come off and he looks like a bit of a fraud, which he certainly isn't a fraud, let's be honest. But my God, Tottenham were excellent today, and I gotta give them full credit as well. City were bad, but Tottenham were very, very good. Very good. Højbjerg was incredible. When he breaks up the play, find those forward passes. Rodri gets caught on it. High pressing from Højbjerg, plays it Harry Kane, and he scores inside the first 15 minutes for Tottenham, who really, from that point on, were just really comfortable in the way they were able to defend their lead. Nice and compact. City very rarely looked very dangerous. Another one of those days for Erling Haaland in a big day, in a big game where he just doesn't really deliver. And you know, we have got to give Erling Haaland credit. I mean, he has been incredible this season. His numbers are simply staggering. But there is now the question being big, are Manchester City a better team without him? Now, I'm not personally standing on that side of the fence just yet, but my God, was he anonymous once again today. And now look, he didn't get much service. I think Jack Grealish was probably City's best player. He brings De Bruyne on in the second half, and not an awful lot changes, to be fair. And I know I'm giving out about De Bruyne not starting, but that is a thing that happened. He brought on Kevin De Bruyne, things didn't really change. Yes, City had a lot of possession, but it was a lot of sideways and backwards stuff. Tottenham were defensively resolute, and City just weren't able to break them down. And it's kind of further evidence that maybe Arsenal are bound to win this Premier League, because I don't see this City side going on a run like they have done in previous years where, you know, okay, they might be on a patch of a few games where they're not doing too well, but you always have that faith that Manchester City could come back and literally win like 10, 15 games on the bounce. I don't think this City team has it in them at the minute, and I'm not going to say it's coming towards the end of the Pep Guardiola tenure or anything like that, or it's coming towards the end of its cycle. I think it's far from it. I think the squad is probably in need of a bit of a refresh, but they're just not firing at all this season, Manchester City. And look, still second in the league, still doing better than a lot of teams, including my team Chelsea, but it's just not the same as it was in previous years. This is not the same formidable Manchester City that we are used to seeing. And usually when a team slips up, say it was Liverpool in the last couple of years that slip up on a weekend, you're always nearly certain that Manchester City are going to respond with a win, but they couldn't do it at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium once again, as Harry Kane breaks an incredible record for Tottenham Hotspur. What a player. Stinker of the week, and not for the first time over the last couple of weeks, Liverpool are in our red box. Liverpool are certainly in the mud. Chelsea drew 0-0 with Fulham on Friday night, which was fairly, I would say, uninspiring and fairly boring and fairly horrible game to watch, despite a couple of moments of quality from the likes of Enzo Fernandez, who looks head and shoulders above the rest of our midfield. But despite that poor result and poor performance at the Bridge the other night, Chelsea did move up to 9th. That's because Liverpool were smashed by Wolverhampton Wanderers at Molineux. Fun fact, again, Jesus, I'm fucking full of them in this episode. Going into the game, Wolves were the lowest scoring team in the division. They'd scored 12 goals all season, and that was kind of one of the biggest issues that we were talking about. You know, Raul Jimenez hasn't really been the best or the same since returning from his injury. Diego Costa's come into this Wolves squad and not really done it. They started with Mateus Cunha up front in this game, who looked like a bit of a threat, but ultimately, you know, that's the problem that Wolves have had all season, and Liverpool somehow managed to concede 3 to them, and it could have easily been more, particularly in that first half, where they fell 2-0 behind inside the first 15 minutes thanks to goals from an own goal by Joe Matip, and on his debut, Craig Dawson absolutely lashed one in from inside the box, and Liverpool just looked so incredibly uninspired. Like, they looked genuinely not arsed. And, you know, there's a question of motivation, and I think that's a lot of the questions that Jurgen Klopp has been facing, who Jurgen Klopp, can I say, looks like an incredibly dejected figure in the Liverpool dugout, and I can see why. Those players don't look like they're playing for him, and I always say it because, you know, being a Chelsea fan, I kind of see this an awful lot where players stop playing for a manager and ultimately it never ends well for the manager in that sense. Now, I don't think Liverpool are going to sack Jurgen Klopp, but he could easily be one of those managers that walks. I do think if he was to leave Liverpool, it'd be off his own accord. But like, you have Wolves playing tiki-taka football, keeping the ball off Liverpool. Like, this doesn't happen ever. And I bring it back to that lack of motivation thing. I know mentally it can be very hard to come as close to a quadruple as Liverpool did last season. I can imagine that being very mentally taxing on the squad and ultimately difficult to come back from, and they've suffered heartbreak, but ultimately they've always been able to come back, and there's just no sign of that kind of life from anyone in this Liverpool team at the moment, and it is worrying. And it seems to have divided the fan base. There's some fans that feel like Klopp should start being held accountable for the way Liverpool are playing, and I do think there's a certain degree of that. There's you know, other sections of fans that think FSG are the problem, the fact that they only signed Cody Gakpo in January and didn't really address other problems such as the midfield. It's worrying, and especially when you look at Liverpool's next 3 games, obviously facing Everton, who are coming off the back of that incredible win, who are always going to be up for a Merseyside derby anyway. They got Newcastle after that, and then it's down to the Champions League round of 16 tie against Real Madrid, who are actually stinking it up in La Liga at the minute as well. But it's not looking good, Liverpool fans. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. What are the biggest problems that need to be addressed in your opinion? Also leave a comment, just fans in general, what you think of the boxes. Would you have changed anything? All that sort of crack. Is it just inevitable now that Arsenal are going to win the title? Let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new around here, and I will catch you later.
I'm in the big leagues, told her don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh, send it through quickly. I'm making his dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding the road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now, so I need that go, y'all. Got hits when they throw